have been wanting to do a disturbing movie recap on Sofia Coppola's The Virgin for the longest, so here we go. Here's another recap, and as always, spoilers ahead. So the movie's about a group of boys who grew up in the same neighborhood, and growing up, these boys were obsessed with the Lisbon sisters, Cecilia, Lux, Mary, Bonnie, and Therese. Now the boys have grown up, they're grown men, they're the narrators of the movie, and the film is from their perspective. And they're looking back, and they're trying to explain and make sense as to what happened to the Lisbon sisters, and why aren't they here with us anymore. Now, the Lisbon household is known. Everybody knows that Mr. and Mrs. Lisbon are hella strict, and they don't allow their daughters to do anything. And the sisters are beautiful, so they're like these mysterious, unattainable objects to these neighborhood boys. Now, Cecilia was the first to go. Cecilia, the youngest, had an attempt. She survives it, but the fact that she had an attempt becomes the talk of the town. Everybody's gossiping about her and the Lisbon family. So Mr. and Mrs. Lisbon take Cecilia to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist goes, "Yo, your daughter did this because this was a cry for help. I think you should throw her a party, sprinkle some boys up in there, make her be social. She'll be fine." So Mr. and Mrs. Lisbon throw Cecilia a party, but Cecilia's not feeling this party. As a matter of fact, she feels kind of excluded. And then at one point, a group of boys start making fun of a kid with Down syndrome, and at that point, Cecilia's like, "You know what? I'm out." Cecilia tells everybody that she's tired and that she wants to go to bed, but instead, Cecilia jumps through a window to remove herself from Earth. This shocks everybody, and the whole town is talking about it, but they're treating it like gossip because it's 1975, and talking about mental health was like a big taboo, a no-no back then. After this, Mr. and Mrs. Lisbon get even more strict. They get crazy with the rules. But it's obvious that the girls just want freedom, and we never get to hear their side of the story. We never hear their first-hand experience of living in that house. Everything we know is from the boys, and they have spent a lot of time stalking and spying on these girls. Now, Lux is deemed as the rebellious one, but really she just wants to live her life as a normal teenage girl, and she's at the age where she likes boys. And Lux catches the eye of Trip, the guy that every girl at school wants. Now with Trip, things are easy because girls be throwing themselves at him all the time, but with Lux, he actually has to work hard, and he ends up just loving Lux, and Lux ends up just loving Trip. Trip has to suffer through supervised dates with Lux's mom sitting between them just to spend time with Lux. So Trip wants to take Lux to homecoming. So Trip goes to Lux's dad to ask his permission to take his daughter to homecoming. Now Mr. and Mrs. Lisbon are controlling with the girls, like they don't leave their sight. They really don't want Trip taking Lux to homecoming, but they allow it on two conditions. Trip has to find dates for all the other sisters, and they have to be back by curfew. Trip gets dates for everybody, they go to homecoming, and everybody makes it back by curfew except for Lux. That's because after the dance, Trip and Lux snuck onto the football field to get busy. And after they were done, Trip leaves Lux on the field. And we see grown-up Trip talking about Lux, and he goes, "I love Lux, but at that moment, I was tired of her. I was sick of her." He goes, "That was the last time I saw Lux alive." So Lux makes it back home, and she's in trouble, and Mr. and Mrs. Lisbon are ready to lay down the law for all the sisters. You thought they couldn't do nothing before, they surely can't do nothing now. No music, no socializing. Hell, the parents pulled them out of school. Things ain't right, and the boys can tell, because at this point, Lux has started hooking up with random guys on the roof of her house. And one day, the boys receive letters from the girls. And the letter says, "Hey, meet us at this time at our house." And the boys think they're gonna help the girls sneak out, escape, get away. The time comes, the boys head over to the house, and Lux greets them. And she goes, "Hey, wait inside for my sisters. I'll go start up the car." The boys walk into the house, and they find that Therese, Bonnie, and Mary have all three taken themselves out individually in different ways. The boys see this, and they run up out of that house. Lux was the last to go. She took herself out in the car. So that means all the Lisbon sisters are now gone. The sisters took themselves out on the anniversary of Cecilia's first attempt. After the loss of their daughters, Mr. and Mrs. Lisbon quietly leave town. The movie ends with the narrator explaining that after 20 years, the loss of the Lisbon sisters still messes with them. And see, they love the sisters, but they really didn't know them, and they don't understand why the girls did what they did, and they never will. And that's something that they have to live with.